All right, we'll say good morning. We have a beautiful, beautiful daf ahead of us today. Today's daf is Vav 6. We are picking up in Meretz Hashem. We are picking up at the two dots on the bottom of Heaven. Base 5b, 5 lines up from the bottom. We'll say our shir this morning is dedicated by our Talmud Torah sponsors of the month of Adar, Learner Mishpacha, in memory of Mrs. Dina Lerner Gerber, Dina Bas Yehuda Leib. The week of learning is dedicated by Paul and Kathy Pollack in memory of Paul's grandparents, Zechariah ben Zechariah and Dina Bas Pesach, Mr. and Mrs. Shmuel Artman, Mr. and Mrs. Moshe David Artman, Le'iloi Nishmas, and Le'zeicha Nishmas, their father's 20th yahrzeit, Fishel Beryl ben Yitzchak Gershon. The day of learning today is dedicated by Gary Goodman in honor of the bris of his grandson Avram Moshe ben Shalom Yecheskel, and the shir this morning is dedicated by Dr. and Mrs. Haber in memory of Dr. Haber's brother Yaakov ben Tzvi. We hope that in the merit of our Talmud Torah, the neshamas will have an aliyah and the families a nechama. I will say with that, let us begin. Two dots, incredible Gemara today. Tan Rabbanan, Hamotzi mechanos laplatya derech stav. So it's an interesting case. If a person goes ahead and brings out the chayfetz, brings out an object from the chanos, from a store to a platya. So we'll say platya is exactly as it sounds, a plaza. A plaza. So just so you understand, the chanos is a rishus hayachid, a private domain. The platya is a rishus harabim, a public domain. So one goes ahead and brings out an object from the chanos to the platya. So the Gemara says, derech stav. Now, interestingly enough, what's this stav? Look at Rashi. Stav is makom itztaba'o sheyoshim sochrim v'shem karmelis aleha dalav lehilucho kirshus rabim. Supposed to listen to this. The stav is this. I don't know what the good English word for this is, but essentially what they would have is in front of stores, in front of store areas, they would have an open area with short pillars. Short pillars. So the truth is, the area could be used for sitting, like imagine like benches, but instead of benches, individual seats. But also the reason why it was in front of stores, the reason why stores were set up by these areas, is because these small pillars were also used for merchants to put out their wares. So just to understand what's happening over here, the individual is taking an object from the chanos, which is Rishus HaYachid, walking through what we call the stav, that area with the small little pillars used for sitting and also putting out wares, and then walking into the plaza, which is Rishus Harabim. What's the status of the stav area? So Rashi points out over the stav area is a karmelis. So we're going to get into a more concrete definitions of all the rishuyos in just a little bit on Vav Amud Aleph. But for our purposes right now, a karmelis is an area which resembles a Rishus Harabim, but at the end of the day doesn't really conform to the full details of Rishus Harabim. So just for example, why is this stav area not a real Rishus Harabim? It's very simple. Why not? Because it doesn't allow for unimpeded pedestrian traffic. We're going to see that part of what makes a Rishus Harabim is the ability for unimpeded pedestrian traffic. The stav, because it has all of these small little pillars all over the place, people have to weave between the pillars. So we'll say, so that's the shaila. I take an object from the store to the plaza, but I take it through the stav. What's the halacha? So the Gemara says, chayiv. Did Rabbanan say you're chayiv? Why are you chayiv? We'll say, what did you do over here? So halacha l'maisa, you're chayiv. Sorry. Let's see. Okay. You're chayiv because halacha l'maisa, you have taken an object from Rishus Harabim to Rishus HaYachid, albeit through a karmelis. Uben Azai poter. Ben Azai ultimately says that you are poter. So we'll say, what's the pshat? It says the Gemara Bishlama Ben Azai. So we'll say, why does Ben Azai say that you're poter? Bishlama Ben Azai kasarim halech ka'omei dami. It's very simple. Ben Azai says that when you walk through a particular space, it's as if you are at rest, right? So according to Ben Azai, walking through a rishus is ki'ilu, you have stopped there. So therefore, according to Ben Azai, what's happened? Rabbi will say, what's happened? You've taken an object from Rishus HaYachid, and then what? essentially you walk through the stav, you walk through a carmelis. But according to Ben Azai, walking is the equivalent to stopping. So what have you effectively done? It's kilu what? It's kilu like you've put the object down in the stav, then picked it up again and walked out ultimately into Rosh Hashanah. So I said that's not really, you can't be chayiv for that, because remember you're only chayiv for transferring an item from Rosh Hashanah to Rosh Hashanah, from Rosh Hashanah to Rosh Hashanah, or we'll see like Dalet Amos in Rosh Hashanah. But taking an object from a carmelis, ultimately, again, to a Rosh Hashanah or Carmelis to a Rosh Hashanah, technically speaking, is not chayiv. So according to Ben Azai, when you walk through a space, it's as if the object has come to rest in that space. But according to the Rabbanan, so Rabbanan hold when you walk through a space, that is not ki'ilu, the object has come to rest in that space. So we'll say, but nevertheless, heichi ashkichana kai gavna dechayiv. But I will say, at the end of the day, how could the Rabbanan really hold that you're chayiv? Look at Rashi for just a moment. Heicha ashkechane kai gavna demifsika reshus achrisi mechayiv dilma lo chayiv rachman ela b'motzir shesam l'shesam. So I'll say, so the shaila is, I understand Ben Azai's position, right? Ben Azai's position is hiluch mahalech ka'omedami. Walking through a particular reshus is as if what? The object you are carrying has come to rest in that reshus. But how do the Rabbanon just say that you're chayiv? And I was both saying, this one thing you have to say is that this is clearly not a paradigmatic case of hotzah, right? Paradigmatic hotzah is what? Rosh Hashanah to Rosh Hashanah, Rosh Hashanah to Rosh Hashanah. Here, you are walking through an exempt area, a technically exempted area. So how could the Rabbanon just say straight out that you're chayiv? Rabbi Yochanan on top of Vav, Midi dehava mavir chevis b'Rosh Hashanah. So we'll say it's very interesting, because according to the Rabbanon, why is this any different than transporting an object Dalet Amis in Rosh Hashanah? I will remember again, what is the halacha? The halacha is that you are not allowed to transport an object more than Dalet Amis in Rosh Hashanah. The Rabbi said, now listen to this. The halacha is, look at Rashi. Midi dehava mavir chevis Rosh Hashanah. Yoser mi Dalet Amis. V'chol kama dolo manach lei pater v'chi anchei chayiv. Suppose say this is fascinating. Imagine the following scenario. Reuven is carrying an object through Rosh Hashanah. Now remember, how far do you have to travel in order to go ahead and violate Shabbos? 4 Amos in Rosh Hashanah. Watch this. Let's say Reuven walks Dalet Amos, he's holding an object. And he walks 4 Amos, 10 Amos, 15 Amos. He's only chayiv when, Rabbi say? He's only chayiv when? When he stops. What the Gemara is suggesting is, let's say he walks a total of 15 Amos. Anything in between Amma number 5 and Amma number 15, technically speaking, is like an exempt area. Why is it like an exempt area? Because essentially, once you got past Amma number 4, so then again, you have traversed the area of liability. Anything extra beyond that, there's no new chiyuv, there's no new obligation or liability which has been generated. Therefore, I will say the Gemara says, and yet we see that what? When you do put down the object, you are chayiv. Even though, again, there is this whole additional area of amos between amma number 5 and amma number 15, which technically speaking is what we call exempt area. In other words, there's no new liability generated by that. Yet, even though you've traversed this new exempt area, halacha l'maisa, when you do put down the object, you are chayiv. To which the Gemara says, come on, that's not really a good comparison. Hasam lav afagav dekam dinakileva azil pater kimanach lechayiv hachinami lo shna. Supposed to the Gemara wants to draw an example that why that's no different than a case of what? Carrying from the chanus, from the storage sayachid, through the stav, the carmelis, and putting down the object in the plati, in the plaza of Shusarabim. In both cases, you're carrying through an exempted area, and yet when you ultimately do put down the object, you will be liable. To which the Gemara says, I don't know, me dummy, is that really comparable? Hasam kolecha damanich le makom chiyufu. It's not really true, but in the case of the Rosh Hashanah, wherever you end up putting down that object in Rosh Hashanah, that is all a liable area. Hacha imanach le bistav makom paterhu. We'll say, in this case, if you were to put down the object ultimately in the plaza, then, in the staff, right, the area with the pillars, ultimately again you would be pater. So therefore, the Gemara says it's not really a good comparison. Rishus harabim is a makom chiyuv. It is a place of liability. The stav by definition is not. Ella, so remember again, just to understand, we're trying to figure out the position of the Rabbanon. Ben Azai, I understand, right? Why does Ben Azai say that you're pater? Because Ben Azai says, holech ka'omei dami. When you walk through a rishus, it's as if what? As if what? You've come to rest in that rishus. So according to Ben Azai, when you walk from the chanus to the platya, and you walk through the stav, it's as if what? You have come to rest in the stav, and therefore again, you won't be chayiv. We're trying to figure out the position of the Rabbanon. Why do the Rabbanon ultimately again hold that you're going to be chayiv for such a case? Here we go. Ella, midi dahavya ma'avir chayfetz mitchilas dalid l'sof dalid. Rather, what is it like? It's like a case of where one is transporting an object in Rosh Hashanah from the beginning of Daled Amos to the end of Daled Amos. So watch this. Hasam lav afagavdi manach lebisok Daled Amos pater. If you were supposed to say, if you carry an object in Rosh Hashanah, if you carry an object and you place the object, let's say you stop within Daled Amos, you put it down within Daled Amos. So what's going to be the halacha? Is your pater, right? If you carry less than Daled Amos, your pater. Yet kimanach lebisof Daled Amos chayiv. Yet halacha lemaisa, if you go ahead and you place the object at the end of Daled Amos, you will be chayiv. Suppose I say here you have it, meaning it's the same type of dynamic. If you were to go ahead and stop in the middle, you would be pater. But if you go to the end of that Daled Amos, you're chayiv. To which the Gemara says, hachanami lo shna. To which the Gemara says, it's not a good comparison. Midami. Hasam legabi dehai gavra makam peturhu l'chuli amma makam chiyufu. So I will say, while it is true that for the individual within Daled Amos is called a makam petur, an exempted area, but for everyone else, what is this called? This is called Rosh Hashanah, and therefore is an area of liability. Hacha l'chuli amma makam peturhu. Both in the case of the stav, for everyone, this area of a carmelis is a makam petur. Elamidi dahavi amotzi mirishus hayachid l'rishus harabim derech tzidei rishus harabim. Rather, it must be that what? This could be comparable to a case. Well, listen to this case of a person who's carrying an object from one rishus hayachid to another rishus hayachid through the sides of rishus harabim. Both says we're going to see tzidei rishus harabim are the following. They're an area which are technically speaking rishus hayachid. Technically speaking, it's private property, but what happens? When the Rosh Hashanah becomes very congested, people spill over onto this tract of land. So you have like a lot of examples like this. So really, technically speaking, from a designation perspective, it is private domain. But from a Metzias perspective, when there's a lot of pedestrian traffic, the rabbim spill onto this. So we're going to see that this type of area has a fascinating type of designation. So Gemara says, so Hasam lav afagav di manich le'atzid pater. So listen to this. In that case, suppose if you were to carry something from a rishus hayachid, place it down in the tzidei rishus harabim, right? Then halacha l'maisa, you would be pater. Yet v'chi manach le'b'rishus harabim chayiv. If you were to place it down in the rishus harabim, you would be chayiv. Hachanami lo shna. So too over here, I was saying this same case of the chanos, the stav, and the platya, it should be the same. To which the Gemara says, Maskif l'rapapa, hanicha l'rabanan, da amri tzidei rishus harabim, lav kirshus harabim. Tell me, suppose that makes sense according to the Rabbanon who say that the sides of Rosh Hashanah, in other words, that area that if the Rosh Hashanah becomes too congested, the public spill into, that's not like Rosh Hashanah. According to the Rabbanon who say it's not like Rosh Hashanah, this makes sense. Rabbi said there is a position of Rav Eliezer ben Yaakov who holds that Sidei Rosh Hashanah have the status of Rosh Hashanah. If that's the case, then halacha l'maisa, what is there to say? Eimer the Shamas the Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov Dam Siddur Shusarabim Kushusarabim. But say, when does Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov say that the sides of the Rosh Hashanah have the status of Rosh Hashanah? Heicha deleka chifufi. Both say that's only when there's not chifufi means some type of obstruction or obstacles. Others both say what would happen is sometimes private landowners would place a fence or something because they did not want the rabbim spilling into their property. They just didn't want the rabbim. So when is that true? That ultimately, again, that Tzidei Rishus Harabim is like Rishus Harabim when there's nothing obstructing the public from getting into Tzidei Rishus Harabim. Aval heicha di'ika chafufei. But I will say, if there are, like if, for example, Ruvain puts up a fence, or Ruvain puts up some types of obstructions or obstacles on his Tzidei Rishus Harabim, if that's the case, Misham Mislei, even Rabbi Lazar ben Yaakov would say that halacha l'maisa, if somebody is putting up some type of obstacles or something, ultimately again to his Tzidei Rishus Harabim, then it certainly would not be like Rishus Harabim. Hilchach lahadamya. Therefore, I will say ultimately again, this would actually be a good comparison. Amar Rabbi Yochanan. So both say. So therefore, I both say. So what the Gemara essentially ends off with is it could very well be that the case of the case of the stav is more comparable ultimately again to a case of like the Tzidei Rishus Harabim that has some type of obstacle there. Good. So I'll say. So bottom line is we have a fundamental machlok of Ben Azai and the Rabbanon regarding what happens when you carry from the Chanus to the platya. So ultimately, let's be clear. I'm starting where? In Rosh Hashanah. I'm ending up where? In Rosh Hashanah. But what's happening over here? I'm traveling through a Carmelis. Carmelis as defined as an area that is like a Rosh Hashanah, but does not really satisfy the criteria of Rosh Hashanah. So that's a good example of that is the stav, this area with all of these small pillars. It's like Rosh Hashanah in that it's open and accessible to everyone, but it's not a real Rosh Hashanah. Why? Because it does not allow for unimpeded pedestrian traffic because of the pillars. So the shaila is, what's the status of my act? Ben Azai saying, I'm pater. The Gemara says, Ben Azai, we understand. Right? What's Ben Azai's logic? Holech ka'omed dami. Which will say such a fascinatingly counterintuitive statement, right? Walking is like standing, right? Holech ka'omed dami. That ultimately, again, when you go ahead and you walk through the stav, it's as if you have come to rest. Because you have come to rest, therefore you've broken up the act of carrying, and therefore you will be pater. Now what we've shown is, according to the Rabbanan, ultimately hold that you are chayiv. Why would you be chayiv? Because Rabbi say it could very well be that the stav is like a case of an unimpeded tzidei rishus harabim. Just like an unimpeded tzidei rishus harabim, so too the stav will also have this quasi status as well. Rabbi say, there's an incredible musar in that statement, ultimately of holech ka'omed dami. So you say to yourself, right, the whole yisod in life is to be a holech. That's the whole avodah in life, is to be a holech, is to move, is to grow, is to constantly progress in life. But if you don't have a clear vision of where you're going or what you're doing, even if you're a holech, it's ka'omed dami. Right? Even if halach, so say again, it's not just enough in life to grow, but you have to have a plan for your growth. How are you growing? What's the direction you're growing in? What are the things you want to work on? Because directionless growth, even though it's halicha, it's ka'omed dami. It's kind of like standing still in place. It doesn't fundamentally progress your life agenda. An incredible yisod. Amar Rabbi Yochanan. So Rabbi Yochanan says, Umodeh ben Azai bezorek. But Ben Azai does agree with the case of Bosai of where what? See, the case we're talking about over here is, right, Ruvain will call it, is actively transporting the item from point A to point B. Right? So he's taking the item from the Chanus through the Stav into the Platya. So that's what Ben Azai says, that's your pater. Your pater, because Holech ka'omed dami. But even Ben Azai would agree that if you throw the object from the Chanus to the platya, and the object goes through the area of the stav, then what? Then halacha l'maisa, you will be chayiv. Look at Rashi, bezorek, mechanos laplatya, derech stav dechayiv, dehalo nach bekarmelis midi. So we'll say, remember, even Ben Azai only holds that is holech ka'omed. When you traverse an area, it's as if it comes to rest. But Ben Azai will agree that if you throw an object through the airspace of the stav, you will still be chayiv. You will still be chayiv halacha l'maisa because the item is not as if it came to rest. I'm Rabbi Yochanan. So the Gemara is telling that supports this. Hamotze mechanos l'platya derech stav chayiv. If a person carries an object from the chanos to Rosh Hashanah to the platya to the plaza Rosh Hashanah derech stav, but he takes by way of the stav, which is a karmelis, chayiv. Ultimately, again, you will be chayiv for an act of hotzah like that on Shabbos. So Rabbi say that is indeed how the Shulchan Aruch paskins. Echad hamotzi ve'echad hamachnis. So Rabbi say the direction is irrelevant. So whether you're going from the chanus to the platya, or from the platya to the chanus, and you're going through the stav, right, the karmelis, either way, you will be chayiv. Ve'echad hazorek ve'echad hamoshit. And I will say ultimately again, whether you go ahead and right, whether you go ahead and you throw something, whether you hand something. Ben Azai says hamotzi v'amachnis pater, but Ben Azai will say that halacha l'maisa, if you're actively carrying it and you walk through the stav, you will be pater, because Rabbi according to Ben Azai, walking through the stav ultimately is as if you've come to rest there. However, hamoshit v'azorik chayiv, but halacha l'maisa, if you hand something or you throw something, Ben Azai will agree that halacha l'maisa will be chayiv. So Rabbi say, what comes out, bottom line, is as follows. Everyone agrees that if you throw an object from the chanus into the platya, and it passes through the airspace of the stav, everyone will agree you will be chayiv, because the item has not come to rest in the stav. Rabbi say, of course, remember we did have an opinion of Rav that said kluta kamishahun chadamya, that when something goes through the airspace, ultimately it is as if it's come to rest. Apparently, again, these opinions over here, no one subscribes to that concept here. So therefore, everyone will agree that if you throw the object from the chanus to the platya and it goes through the stav, that you will be chayiv. Machlokas ben Azai and the Rabbanon is if what? Is if you walk through carrying the object. Ben Azai says you're pater, because when you walk through the stav, it is as if you have come to rest in the stav. Rabbanon will say that you will be chayiv. Shulchan Aruch paskins like the Rabbanon, that halacha l'maisa, walking through the karmelis is not as if it has come to rest in the stav, and therefore one will be chayiv for an act of transporting an object from the chanus to the platya, or from the platya to the chanus, even though halacha l'maisa you are walking through the karmelis area. Good. Rabbi say now we come to perhaps one of the most important statements. Tanrabanan. So Rabbi says interesting. Well, watch this. The Gemara says as follows. Tanrabanan. The Gemara is quoting a Tosefta. Dalid reshuyos b'Shabbos. So Rabbi says, so now we're going to get our definition of domains for Shabbos. Even though we're kind of into this discussion already, now we're going to begin to really define our different domains. There are 4 primary domains for Shabbos purposes. Rishus Hayachid, private domain. Rishus Harabim, public domain. Karmelis, which Rabbi says an area that we saw resembles a Rishus resembles a Rishus Harabim, a public domain, but does not adhere to the criteria of a public domain. Umakom P'tor. Rabbi say Makom P'tor is what? An exempted area. Exempted. So these are the Daled Rishus of Shabbos. Private, right, Rishus HaYachid, Rishus HaRabim, Karmelis, Makom B'Tor. Here we go. Let's define them. Ve'ezi Rishus HaYachid. I will say, what is a private domain? Charetz, Shu Amuk Yud V'Rachav Dalet. An example would be a charetz. I will say now a charetz is a hole in the ground. A hole in the ground that is 10 tfachim deep and 4 tfachim wide. So I'll say here the Gemara gives me the dimensions ultimately again of a Rishus HaYachid. A Rishus HaYachid is any area that is 10 tfachim deep, 4 tfachim wide. Now as we're going to see, this is not the only definition. I will say, for example, my yard is Rishus HaYachid. Right? My yard is Rishus HaYachid. So what the Gemara is talking about over here is dimensions that obviously private property is going to be a Rishus HaYachid. What the Gemara is talking about over here is even above, even beyond private property. If you have an area that is 4 tfachim wide and 10 tfachim deep, we're going to see, even if that area is situated in a Rishus Harabim, halacha l'maisa, that could be called a Rishus HaYachid. So that's the definitions of a Rishus HaYachid. V'chein geder, shu gavoa yud v'rachav dalid. And it's really if you have a fence that is 10 tfachim high, 4 tfachim wide, the area of that fence also represents a Rishus HaYachid. Zohi Rishus HaYachid Gimura. This is a complete and total Rishus HaYachid. Okay, again, we're going to go into each of these categories separately. Ve'ezi Rishus HaRabim. But say, what's an example ultimately again of a Rishus HaRabim of a public domain? Sratya Platya Gedola. Rashi says Sratya is Misila Shahochin Bami earlier. So Sratya says what we would call like a highway, right? A road that goes from one city to another city. platya, Rashi says, is rachwa shal ir shesham miskapsin l'schora. So we'll say platya is what we define as a plaza, right? A large open area, a marketplace. So a highway is a Rishus Harabim, right? A platya, a marketplace is a Rishus Harabim. Umavuos hamifulashin. So I will say mavuos hamifulashin ultimately again are roads within a city that are open on both ends. Again, we're going to define all of these things. If you look at Rashi says mavuos mifulashin shel ir rechavim yud vav ama. Right. So I will say according to Rashi. So ultimately, again, these are large open roads that traverse the inside of a city that are at least 16 amos in width. So just to give you an advice, so an amma is 1.5 foot. So there are at least 16 amos in width. So mostly just to give you an idea, in Rav Moshe's Levrach and his famous tshuva as to why Brooklyn cannot have an Eruv. Right? Brooklyn cannot have an Eruv because he paskin that Ocean Parkway is a Rishus Harabim D'Oraisa. Because we're going, and again, the truth is we're going to see a lot of these sugyas much more in Erevin than we'll see them in Shabbos. But Ocean Parkway is an example, ultimately, again, of a street which traverses the inside of a city, is more than 16 amos wide, and ultimately, again, also has the necessary amount of pedestrian volume. So that's just to give you an idea. So the Gemara says as follows. Next, so the Gemara says, "Ve'imot siyim rishus hayach l'rishus harabim zu ve'imachnisim rishus harabim l'rishus harab hayachid zu." So we'll say halacha l'maisa. You can't take an object from rishus harabim to rishus hayachid, from rishus hayachid to rishus harabim. Ve'imhotzi ve'hechnis, and if you did so, if you transported an item from rishus hayachid to rishus harabim, or vice versa, what's the halacha? B'shogeg chayev chatos. If you did it unintentionally, you are chayev chatos. B'mezid anush kares. But if you went ahead and you did it intentionally, ultimately again you are chayev kares v'niskal. So both say, so inadvertent transgression requires a carbon. Intentional transgression chas v'shalom is chayev kares and skila. Good. I mean, not good, but good. We'll go back there. Aval yamu beka. We'll say, well, watch this. What about a sea? Yam is the sea. Bika is wide open fields. So we'll say, so interestingly enough, you would say, is the Yam Rishus Harabim? Is the sea public domain? It is, but as we're going to see now in this next category of things, these are areas that are open to the public, but don't have the volume of pedestrian traffic. So remember again, in order to be a Rishus Harabim, again, the Gemara didn't spell that out over here, but the Gemara, if you look at the examples of the Gemara ultimately again are like the marketplace. The marketplace has size and volume of traffic. So I will say, so therefore again, Yam, but the sea, Bika, wide open fields, Istavanis. Rashi says, Istavanis, what we just had before, right? I don't know what the good English word is, but it's like the, what is the English word? Bench area. Okay, I expected more. Right, bench area. All right, great. Right, so I'll say, so the seating area that's there, as we just described before, V'ha-karmelis, and I will say karmelis, again, as we mentioned before, is kind of like a catch-all phrase for any area that is like the Rishus Harabim but does not adhere to certain criteria. What's the halacha? Eino lo kirshas harabim v'lo kirshas hayachid. So both say, so the examples over here are very telling. So the examples over here are areas which are open and accessible to the public, but yet at the end of the day lack the volume of pedestrian traffic. So both say, so in halacha, what do we do with these areas? So watch this. Eino lo kirshas harabim v'lo kirshas hayachid. So we'll say in reality, these areas, they're not really like public domains. Why? Because as we said before, they lack pedestrian traffic. They're also not like private domains, right? Why? Because halacha l'maisa, they are open to the public. So they're not like Rishus Harabim because they lack pedestrian traffic. They're not like private domains because halacha l'maisa, they are open to the public. Therefore, ve'inosin v'nosin b'socha, You're not allowed to carry Dalet Amis in these areas, just like Rosh Hashanah. V'nasa v'nasa b'socha pater. But if you did carry Dalet Amis in these areas, you're pater. Ve'im motziin misocha l'Rosh Hashanah v'lo Rosh Hashanah l'socha. Ve'im machnisem Rosh Hashanah l'socha v'lo misocha l'Rosh Hashanah. Say for Rabbi say these areas, which we will call a Carmelis, all of these areas, essentially, you kind of give them the stringencies of both Rosh Hashanah and Rosh Hashanah. So just like you can't carry Dalet Amis in Rosh Hashanah, you also can't carry Dalet Amis in a Carmelis. And in the same way that you can't carry, so everyone saying the same way you can't carry from a Carmelis to Rosh Hashanah, or from Rosh Hashanah to a Carmelis, from Rosh Hashanah to a Carmelis, from a Carmelis to Rosh Hashanah. But if halacha l'maisa you did carry from any area to a Carmelis or from a Carmelis to any other area, halacha l'maisa you will be pater. Chatzeros shel rabim umavuos she'inan mefulash. And similarly again, courtyards that belong to the public or streets that are not open on both ends. Again, we'll see what these mean. Erevu, if you make an eruv, we're talking about over here an eruv chatzeros mutarin. Ultimately, again, you could carry into them. So we'll say now we're transitioning a little bit. It's to the following case. Let's say you have a courtyard that is shared by many homes, right? Or homes or courtyards that open up into a shared alleyway. So we'll say, so these are areas that halacha l'maisa are publicly owned, or they're jointly owned, but halacha l'maisa, they're not open to the general public. So in these areas, in order to carry from them or to them, you require what's called an eruv chatzeros. Again, we'll see all of this more inside. See, if you made an eruv, then ultimately again, you can carry from the homes into them, or from the courtyards into them. But without an eruv, ultimately again, you cannot carry. Adam omid al isikufa. We'll say if a person is standing on the isikufa. Now we'll say in this context over here, isikufa literally means the threshold of a house. The threshold of a house. Now watch this. If he stands on the threshold of the house, no tell me balabayis, v'no sinlo. So the balabayis, right, the person inside the house, could give something to a person standing on the threshold. No tell me balabayis, v'no sinlo. No tell me ani, v'no sinlo. Similarly again, I will say, the person standing on the threshold, as we're going to see, the threshold itself is what's called a makom p'tur. It's a non-rishus. Therefore, again, we'll call it, it's rishus fluid. It's rishus fluid, which I will say essentially means that ultimately, again, if you're standing on the threshold, the person in the house could give you something, you could give something back to the person. The person, the Rabbi could give you something, you give it back to the person. No, tell me, ani v'nosin lo. O bilvad shelo yitol mi balabayis v'nosin lo ani me ani v'nosin lo balabayis. I will say, but what can't you do? So I will say, again, we're going to define all of this, but essentially the isikufa itself is a makom p'tur, is an exempted area. Therefore, I will say, it essentially is, like we said before, it's rishus fluid. So he could get something from the balabayis, give back to the balabayis. Balabayis is rishus yachid. He can get something from the ani, give back to the ani, right? The ani is Rosh Hashanah. What can't he do? He can't go ahead and be the conduit to transfer something from the ani in the Rosh Hashanah to the balabayis in the Rosh Hashanah. That he can't do. Ve'im natal, but if he did do it, ve'im natal v'nasan shlashta p'turin. Ultimately, again, all three of them are patur. Achirim, others say, isikufa mishameshes beis rishuyos. But others say, no, the definition of the threshold depends. What does it depend on? Bizman pesach pasuach kilifnim. Pesach no kuluchot. So we'll say, watch this. The threshold, everything depends on what? If the door to the house is open, right? If the door to the house is open, so ultimately, again, the threshold is like the Rosh Hashanah. If the door to the house is closed, then the threshold will be like Rosh Harabim. The Gemara says, now, boss, you already know the answer to this. What happens if the threshold is four tefachim wide, ultimately, again, by 10 tefachim high? Then Rabbi say, what does that sound like? Dimensions for Rishus HaYachid, Harei Zeh Rishus Li'atzma. So we'll say, interestingly enough, you could have a threshold that, technically speaking, is its own Rishus HaYachid, becomes its own private domain. Good. So we'll say, now we'll say, what you just saw over this Tanah Abban on this Tosefta is perhaps one of the most important pieces in the Gemara that we're going to see, because now we finally have our definitions. We know the definition of Rosh Hashanah, the definition of Rosh Hashanah, the definition of a Carmelis, and the definition of a Makom P'tur. So as I just so you understand, by the way, the dimensions ultimately of that Isikufa is that it's less than Dalid Bayud, right? It's less than 4 Tfachim by 10 Tfachim. So therefore, again, that's what kind of creates that, the same way that a Carmelis is an area that does not conform to the details of a Rosh Hashanah. You could imagine, for our purposes, that the Makom P'tur is an area that does not conform to the measurements of a Rishus Hayochid. Okay, so with that, let's go weiter. Amar Mar, so we'll see, here we go. Zohi Rishus Harabim, Zohi Rishus Hayochid. So let's remember again, so the Brisa went out of its way to define the parameters of a private domain. So when it says Zohi Rishus Hayochid, this is an example of Rishus Hayochid, L'me'ute, what is it coming to exclude? L'me'ute had Rabbi Yehuda. Desanya Yasser al-Kain, Rabbi Yehuda, we'll say, watch this, Mi sheyesh lo beis batim b'shnei tidi Rishus Harabim. So we'll say, this is an interesting case. Imagine for a moment you have a street. That street is Rishus Harabim. On both sides of the street you have homes. 2 homes. So watch this. Rabbi Yehuda said that if there are 2 homes on either side of the Rishus Harabim, Oseh lechi amud beis, Oseh lechi mikan v'lechi mikan, O kora mikan v'kora mikan, v'nosing be'emtza. Shabbos Rabbi Yehuda has a pretty wild shita. His wild shita, and I will say now, his shita is based on the following. Imagine for a moment you were to have 2 homes on either side of the Rishus Harabim, and you were to have an overhang over the Rishus Harabim. Rabbi Yehuda holds that halacha l'maisa, that covered area of the Rishus Harabim takes on the status of what? A Rishus Hayochid, a private domain. Rabbi Yehuda takes that a step further, that if you have 2 homes on either side of the Rishus Harabim, two homes on each side of the street, and each home, right, were to make a lechi or a korah. Now, say, again, we'll get into this more later on, but a lechi or a korah, just to understand where this really comes up, and this is in the following case. In Talmudic times, follow me with this in just a moment. In Talmudic times, homes opened up into a shared courtyard. Shared courtyards opened up into a shared alleyway, and alleyways opened up into the public domain. The halacha is that on a technical level, there is no problem carrying in a shared alleyway, because that's still called a private domain. But because you often had multiple courtyards opening up into a shared alleyway, it had the appearance of a Rishus Harabim. What the rabbis therefore legislated is, you have to make some type of siman, some type of sign on this shared alleyway, so that people know how to distinguish between a shared alleyway and Rishus Harabim. What type of distinction that you have to make? You have to put either a lechi or a korah at the entranceway of the mavui, at the entranceway of the alleyway. A lechi or a korah is either a vertical or a horizontal beam at the entranceway of the alleyway that would remind you that this alleyway is a Rishus Hayochid, but the outside is a Rishus Harabim. Rabbi Yehuda says that if you put a lechi or a korah on those 2 homes, on opposite sides of the Rishus Harabim, that makes the area in between the 2 homes a Rishus Hayochid. The Gemara is coming along and saying that when our Brisa said, when the Tosefta said over here, Zohi Rishus Hayochid, it is coming to exclude the position of Rabbi Yehuda. Namely, we do not accept Rabbi Yehuda's position. In other words, you cannot convert a Rishus Harabim into a Rishus Hayochid by putting up some type of beam on either side of the Rishus Harabim. So we'll say ultimately again, now remember, the lashon of the Brisa was, so remember again, we'll say how the Brisa was organized. First the Brisa gave you the list of all 4 domains. After that, the Brisa then began to define Ve'ezohi Rishus Harabim or Ve'ezohi Rishus Hayochid. What's a Rishus Hayochid? So again, then the Brisa gave the examples of Rishus Hayochid, and then it said Zohi Rishus Hayochid Gemura. This is a real Rishus Hayochid. So ask the Gemara, why do you need that last phrase, Zohi Rishus Hayochid Gemura? To which the Gemara says, Ma'udatema, keep the Yirabban Ale Rabbi Yehuda, de lo havi Rishus Hayochid. Hani mili letaltel, aval lizrok module. Because you might have thought, when did the rabbis not accept Rabbi Yehuda's idea of converting a Rishus Harabim between two homes into a Rishus Yachid with the placement of a Lechi or a Korah, that's only for what to carry. But ultimately, again, for throwing purposes, perhaps they would agree. Kamash Malon, no. Kamash Malon will say that ultimately, again, the rabbis reject the position of Rabbi Yehuda in totality, and therefore there is no ability to go ahead and convert a Rishus Harabim in between two homes into a Rishus Hayachid with just the presence of a Lechi or a Korah. Good. Amar Mar. Zohi Rishus Harabim Lumi Uteimai. So we'll say next. Remember again. The next part was the Brisa gave the example of a Rishus Harabim. Right? So when it says Zohi Rishus Harabim, what is it coming to? So we'll say so again. So far one case down. Right? We have our definition of Rishus Hayachid. What's a Rishus Hayachid? So by the way, obviously, what is a Rishus Hayachid? The obvious case. Any private property is Rishus, right? Your yard is Rishus Hayachid. That goes without saying. Also, what the Gemara is going ahead is giving, and by the way, and any area that has a height of 10 tefachim and an area of 4 tefachim, that's also a Rishus Hayachid. So far we've defined our first Rishus. Next, Rishus Harabim. So says the Gemara, Amar Mar, Zohi Rishus Harabim, Limi Uteimai. So when the Brisa said, this is a Rishus Harabim, what is it coming to exclude? Limi Ute Idach de Rabbi Yehuda. Ultimately, and it comes to exclude the first, right, the other position of Rabbi Yehuda. We're going to say, what does Rabbi Yehuda say? The son of Rabbi Yehuda Omer, Im Haya Derech Rishus Harabim Mefaskasan Yisal Kenal Itztadin V'chachamim Omrim Eino Tzarech. So we'll say, listen to this. An interesting case. So we'll say we're going to see all of these situations. There is a case I will say called Pasei Biros. If you have a well, so we'll say, listen to this. Let's say if you have a well and you want to draw water from the well on Shabbos. Right? So let's say you have a well that's situated in a public domain. Can you draw water? And the answer sounds like no. Why? Because we're about to say a well sounds to be a paradigmatic example of a Rishus Hayachid. Because a well presumably will have an area of 4 tefachim, which is not a very large area, and will certainly have 10 tefachim in depth. Which means if you're standing in the public domain, and you want to draw water, you can't really draw water, right? Because you'd be transporting it from a private domain to the public domain. So the rabbis created a leniency. Now, being able to draw water from a well on Shabbos is very important, right? And it's very important specifically, again, for the Olei Regalim. When people would come to Yerushalayim on the 3 pilgrimage festivals, Pesach, Shavuos, and Sukkot, they had to have access to public water sources on Shabbos. So the rabbis legislated that essentially you can make a very simple enclosure to enclose a well. And I will say it's called Pasei Biros. Essentially what it is, if you can imagine, it's 4 L-shaped partitions. Right? 4 L-shaped partitions in 4 corners, right? Each partition only measuring an amma in length, and that encloses the well. Again, we're going to get into this. I will say, what happens if you have a public path that cuts through in the middle of those partitions? Does that ruin the effectiveness of the partitions or not? So Rabbi Yehuda says yes. And therefore, again, what you have to do is you have to divert the public path outside of the partitions. The Rabbanan say, the Chum say, no, it's not a problem. Right? The public path ultimately does in no way diminishes the partitions, and it's fine. Look at Rashi. Einot tzarech, v'hainu diktani zohi rishus harabim, aval hiluch derabim lebein apasim, lo havi rishus harabim, ho v'ikasham dalin mechitzos. So Rabbi said that's why when the Brisa that we quoted before says zohi rishus harabim, what it means is if you have the partitions surrounding the well, and there's a public thoroughfare that goes through, that public thoroughfare is not considered to be a real Rishus Harabim, which would ruin the partitions. V'amai karele gemura. So we'll say, why does the Bride say this is Rishus Harabim gemura? To which the Gemara says, I did the tani reishe gemura, tananami seife gemura. Good. Just textual symmetry. Since it said Rishus Hayachid gemura, therefore it says what's Rishus Harabim gemura as well. Beautiful. Says the Gemara, tananami seife gemura. I'm sorry. So we'll say, in the list of things that are part of a Rishus Harabim, why isn't a desert included in the list? Isn't the desert also a Rishus Harabim? But so listen to this. Dasanya, after all, we learned this. Dasanya, Ezu hi Rishus Harabim, Sratya, Platya, Gidola, Mevuas, Mefulashin, Vahamidbar. We'll say, watch this. In this list, a desert is included in Rishus Harabim. Yet in the Brisa, in the Tosefta we quote on Amud Aleph, Midbar is not included. Rabbi lo kasha, it's not a contradiction. Kan bisman sheisol sharuyin b'midbar, kan bisman azeh. I will say, watch this. See, a midbar, I will say, is very much like the yam, which means what? Technically speaking, it's accessible to the public, but you don't normally have a lot of pedestrian traffic inside of the midbar. So when the Bryce said that the midbar is like Rosh Hashanah, that's halacha l'maisa, when the Jewish people were in the deserts. When the Jewish people were not in the deserts, then halacha l'maisa, the midbar does not have the status of Rosh Hashanah. Amar Mar, im hotzi v'hechnis b'shogeg chayev chatos b'mezid anush kares v'niskal. So also remember again, let's go back to the Bryce. What do the Bryce say? If you carry inadvertently on Shabbos from Rosh Hashanah to Rosh Hashanah or vice versa, inadvertently, you're chayev chatos. If you did it intentionally, you're chayev kares and you get skila. So the Gemara says, B'shogeg chayev chatos pshita. So we'll say, obviously, if you violated Shabbos b'shogeg, you're chayev chatos. That's obvious. The Gemara says, b'mezid anush kares v'niskal. I'm sorry. B'mezid anush kares v'niskal, it's shrichale. We'll say, you're right. The truth is, there's no need to state that if you inadvertently violated Shabbos, you'll be chayiv skila. That's obvious. What's necessary is the statement that halacha l'maisa, if you did it inadvertently, you will be. I'm sorry. The inadvertent statement, Rabbosai, is pshita. That's obvious. What's necessary? The statement ultimately, again, that if you did it b'mezid, you will get kares and skila. So the Gemara says, "Shrichale," which Gemara says, why? Hanami pshita. Isn't that obvious as well? Hakamashulon kidarav. The Amarav, both listen to this. Matzasi Megillas Starim Bei Rabbi Chia. I found the hidden scroll in the yeshiva of Rabbi Chia. What was in the hidden scroll? The Kasuv Ba. Isi ben Yehuda Omer, Avos Malachos Mem Chaser Achos. Isi ben Yehuda said, there are 40 minus 1 malachos, right? 39 malachos. That actually, I mean, that's a Mishnah, right? There are 39 malachos. Ve'eno chayiv ela achos. But you are only chayiv once. You're only chayiv once. I will say, now what does that mean? Look at Rashi. Eno chayiv ela achos. Hashta mashma imasan behalam echad shelo nodalo bein kol achas ve'achas shechata. Eno chayiv ela achos. So what that sounds like is as follows. If you were a busy boy and violated all 39 malachas in one lapse of awareness, then halacha l'maisa, it sounds like you'd only be chayiv once. Is that true, Ini? V'hatnan avos malachos mem chasra achos. There are 39 malachos. V'avina ba minyan alamali. And we asked, why do I need to know the number that it's 39? But Rabbi Yochanan to teach me shemasan kolam behelamachas chayva kalachas v'achos. To teach me about said that what? That if I ended up violating all 39 malachas in one lapse of awareness, I will in fact be chayiv for every single malacha. Ela ima eino chayiv al achos mehen. Rather, I will say, what does it mean? That halacha l'maisa eino chayiv al achos. And Rashi says achos yeshban she'eino chayiv ala. So I'll say, interestingly enough, what Rav said, what I found in this hidden scroll was there is one malacha. There is one malacha that if you were to violate it intentionally, you would not be chayiv kares and skila. One malacha. V'ha kamash malan ha mehanach d'lo mesapkan. And I will say, ultimately, again, therefore, our Bryce is teaching us that although we're not sure exactly which one we're referring to, we know for sure that what? It's not hotzah. Hotzah is one of the malachos, that if you were to violate it intentionally, you would be chayiv kares and skila. So I say, so apparently, according to this hidden scroll, and again, we're going to come back to this, but according to this hidden scroll, there is one malacha, for if you were to violate it, you would not be chayiv kares and skila, but apparently, again, hotzah is not that malacha. I will say, we'll stop over here. I will say, just an important announcement, in the coming day or so, where the shul, as are many shuls in town, are going to have to figure out and try to reassess the policies for shiurim and public gatherings. Again, going forward, the first confirmed case of coronavirus in Baltimore County just occurred last night. So we'll have to address this. So we're going to put something out on the WhatsApp group as well. So just stay tuned. I'm mentioning this because a number of you have reached out to me about this already, and I'm not ignoring your texts and your emails and your WhatsApp messages. Just a bit too much to communicate with everyone. So Meretz Hashem, over the next day or so, we'll be putting together policies, and Meretz Hashem will share them with the Olam.